Hello everyone, today I'll be reviewing Once Upon a Time in the West. So Once Upon a Time in the West came out in 1968 and was directed by Sergio Leone, and like a lot of Sergio Leone's films, this is a western, or a spaghetti western as it was known. So right at the start of this film we get these three men who are just standing around waiting for a train, and all of a sudden they hear the sound of a harmonica, and the men turn around and it's Charles Bronson playing the harmonica, and Charles Bronson has come along and he's looking for a man named Frank, and he wants to take revenge on this man named Frank, but we as the audience, we don't know why. Unfortunately, Frank is not there, so Charles Bronson manages to shoot these three guys down and then continues on his way. Meanwhile, however, we have a family who is brutally massacred by this gang, and it turns out that the leader of this gang is played by Henry Fonda, and Henry Fonda is actually this Frank character who I mentioned earlier. And throughout this film we also follow a few other different characters as well, but most of the film tends to focus on Henry Fonda and Charles Bronson's characters. So this was the first time that I had seen this film, so I was very excited going into it because I really enjoy westerns, and I had previously seen the $3 trilogy, which was directed by Sergio Leone. So going into this I sort of had an idea of what to expect, and overall I was very impressed by this film. I had a really good time with it, and it's also fantastic to get that fantastic musical score by Ennio Morricone, who also did the score for the $3 trilogies. And in general, when I compare this film to the $3 trilogy, this is a lot more grander and a lot larger and more epic in scale. It's also a very long film, and it feels like a much larger film in general. For me, the standout actor of this film is absolutely Henry Fonda. Now, Henry Fonda in general, obviously a fantastic actor. I've seen him in other films like The Grapes of Wrath and 12 Angry Men, but here it's really interesting to see him play a villain, to play a bad character. And in fact, when he's introduced, we get this excellent shot of the camera swinging around to see him, and I can just imagine audiences watching this for the first time being so surprised that Henry Fonda is a bad guy, and he just completely murdered this family, and also near the start he also shoots dead this kid. And this is Henry Fonda, who was always known for being a good guy in the movies. I must also say Charles Bronson is also very good as well. Charles Bronson always has this way of coming across as really cool, and really, I don't know, he's just always cool, always a very likeable character, a bit like in his roles in films like The Great Escape and The Magnificent Seven, and here he just feels so comfortable. He just is a character that we sort of follow throughout the film, and we really want him to succeed in his goal of finally catching Frank. Now, on the downside of this film, I have to say I did find the plot a little bit more convoluted than I was expecting, especially when you compare it to the $3 films. Because with the $3 trilogy, those films tend to be quite straightforward to follow, they're very accessible. This one, I did have to think a little bit when I was watching it about what exactly was happening and why the characters were making certain decisions. Now, one of the characters I should mention is played by Claudia, Cardinale, and when she comes into the film, she is the wife of one of the men who was murdered at the start, you know, the family that I mentioned, and she comes into the story and she essentially is shocked to see the family murdered, but then it later also turns out that she is a prostitute, and it seems as though she wants to gain access to some money which is in a house, which I found quite confusing because after the family died she goes and looks for some money, and then she's also later seen talking to some other characters, so I was slightly confused about whether the characters knew each other or not. Now, I'm not going to spoil the film too much exactly, but there was also an element of double crossing occasionally in this film. I wasn't sure exactly who was working for who. It seemed as though 1 minute a character was on the same side as another, then they were shooting each other, but to be honest, when I was watching this, I tried not to think too much about what was going on. I just tried to sit back and enjoy it, and that way I found I could really appreciate the film a lot more. And in terms of the action scenes, they are very well done. The choreography with all the shooting and everything, just the camera work, the editing, it's all very slick and very professional looking. And once again, Ennio Morricone's fantastic score really helps elevate this film much more. Although Ennio Morricone's score probably a bit better in films like The Good, the Bad and the Ugly, but in this one it's always there in the background, especially with that iconic harmonica sounding theme. Just really sets the tone of the film very well. I must also say this is a fantastic looking film. The cinematography is really good, and I was really surprised when watching the Blu-ray behind me how good the quality was. I could actually see the sweat and the wrinkles on Charles Bronson's and Henry Fonda's face. It was really quite surprising. I wasn't expecting that at all. But overall, it is a very interesting film, and in terms of a Western, it is absolutely one of the best Westerns of all time. And if you're someone who likes Westerns, you absolutely have to see this film. It is a must-see. Another thing I must mention is some of the stunt work that's done in this film looks very impressive. There is one scene where Henry Fonda shoots someone, and then the guy, he falls off a roof and he tumbles down all the way to the ground and he lands on his back. And I thought, wow, that must have been really painful, because it certainly looked painful. So I'm not sure exactly if the stuntman survived or was injured during that stunt, but that certainly looked very impressive. So you can certainly tell from watching this film they really went all out in getting everything exactly right. So overall, as you can probably tell, I'm a big fan of this film. I'm a big fan of Westerns in general. And these types of spaghetti westerns are some of the best westerns of all time, still unmatched to this day. And Sergio Leone, he really had the westerns down to a T. He was absolutely fantastic at doing them. And Once Upon a Time in the West overall is an excellent film. So overall, I am going to give it a rating of 9 out of 10. I can't quite give it a 10 out of 10 just because I found the plot a little bit convoluted. There's this element of the story where they're trying to build this train station, which got a little bit confusing for me at first, but I was able to pick it up towards the end. But nevertheless, overall, it has everything you want in a Western, to be honest. It's absolutely beautifully filmed, fantastic performances by Henry Fonda and Charles Bronson, and beautiful music by Ennio Morricone. So what more could you want really from a Western? So there we go. I highly recommend Once Upon a Time in the West. So that is my review of Once Upon a Time in the West. So what do you guys think? Have you seen it? Do you like it? Do you dislike it? Please let me know down in the comment section what your thoughts are. Anyway, thank you all very much for watching. I'll see you all in the next video. Take care.